Welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show. If you are tired of chasing buy-in, frustrated with teams who can't seem to get on the same page, or over the constant struggle of holding people accountable without micromanaging, this is the show for you. I'm Casey Watts, speaker, author, and the creator of the Clarity Cycle Framework. I help leaders just like you take teams from frustration to alignment so teams can work collectively toward a common purpose in a committed way instead of against each other as though they are functioning in different organizations. And we do it all through the craft of clarity. Whether you lead from the middle or you are the front-facing leader of your organization, on this show, we bring clarity to the seemingly small things in leadership that make the biggest difference, because clarity precedes capacity. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's episode. Oh gosh, I was mid-drink. Hey, everybody. I should probably catch that. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode. Man, I am pumped to have, and I didn't even ask how you pronounce your last name, so I'm going to let you pronounce it here in a little bit, Kim, because I'm known for butchering names, and I don't know what it is. I think I overthink it, and I might have the correct pronunciation in my head, and then as soon as the words come out of my mouth, it is like foreign language. So I'm excited about today's episode. Today, we are bringing clarity to how leaders have teachers' backs. The title of this episode is We've Got Your Back. Okay, well, prove it. Do you really? So I'm pumped about this episode. Kim, welcome to the show. Tell our audience a little bit about who you are and the work that you do.
Yeah, my name is Kim Gameroz, like a beautiful rose. Did you get it? Is that what you're going to say?
Yes. Probably not. I would have wanted to say that, but it may not have come out that way.
It's Kim Gameroz. I am the founder and CEO of two businesses, Teaching Inside Out and also SELebrate Good Times. And SELebrate Good Times was at the very beginning of everything. It was an Instagram account. It turned into me leaving a classroom setting and then coaching at a district. It became my very first community across the country when I moved out here to Dallas from Southern California. And then I just knew that I needed to separate it when I started working with more and more schools and districts. So the community of teachers who don't necessarily have a school to back them up, maybe a leader isn't investing in their support that they need. They have me, a community of teachers who are like-minded and heart-centered all across the country that celebrate good times. And then the work that we do with schools and school districts is Teaching Inside Out. So I have mentor teachers. We go in and run alongside teachers. We create common language, common systems at a tier 1 level across your campus and across your district. And it's usually like hey, what are you doing? They kind of give us like, well, we have this, this, and this. We've got this boxed curriculum that isn't working for social emotional learning. We have everybody kind of doing their own thing. We have, I'm putting in quotes, like PBIS systems, and we're putting out fires all the time. So we come in, we create that common language, common system so that everybody goes from chaos to calm.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And if people were to follow your Instagram page, they would see that loud and clear. In fact, I feel like in the last couple of days, you posted something that really resonated with a lot of people. And I think it was a carousel. And each part of the carousel was like, here is what you're going home feeling. Like you're showing up and you're doing the best that you can. You leave, get in your car, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but you get in your car, you close the door, and it's just tears, Can you tell a little bit more about that and why you're drawn to support people in that position?
I mean, I was that teacher. I started off that way, being in a first grade classroom and having more and more kids coming to me, diagnosed or undiagnosed with autism, especially, but ADD, ADHD, everything under the sun. It kind of is like, wait, what are we doing here to support me as the teacher, but also support the kids? And it got to a point, Casey, where I went searching for answers, and I went directly to a speech pathologist friend of mine who was at my site. And I was like, what are you doing in your small groups that I could possibly pull into my classroom? And all of a sudden I was like, well, this is the language that I need to teach the social world. These are the things I need for emotional regulation and executive functioning. And it just like, I went from the teacher who was crying in the parking lot or screaming at home at my husband or being so overwhelmed, even with like a newborn baby, right, at home. It went from not having the skills to all of a sudden having a full toolbox of skills.
Mhm.
And so, teachers that we work with, I hear that story over and over and over again. It's, I need support. I'm going home crying. I can't do this anymore. I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
And it's not because they stopped loving teaching. They love teaching, but they just don't know how to support kids or themselves. And so that's where I come in.
Yeah. And a love of teaching can always be present, but if you don't have the support that you feel you need, it turns into almost like you get into this really bittersweet space. And that bittersweet space can turn into burnout and discontent, and that people leave the profession. And we need to keep people who love teaching. We just have to get back to what does that mean and what does it look like to love teaching and then be able to do it well, so you love it even more.
Yes.
Yeah. And you guys, you have a podcast that you run with a couple of other people. Tell a little bit about that, because I think what I'm going to ask you about, that's going to transition into what we talk about next.
Okay. So I dream big, and it wasn't just enough to like write a book or have two businesses or have a community. Like, I knew I needed to have a conference because it needed to feel good, not like the yucky, the stale, the round table conference. You know what I mean? Like no slide decks. It needed to feel good. It needed to feel light. And so I created Vibe EDU. And so in August, out in Southern California, we had our very first conference/unconference. And it was then around that time also where I was meeting with a group of men. So TJ Very, and then also Mitch Weathers and Josh Stamper. And I kind of just, during our conversations, I was like, you guys, why aren't we recording these? Like the people need to hear this.
Yeah.
And so after the conference, we just kind of went, okay, we're going to keep the name the same. It's Vibe EDU. It's the Vibe EDU podcast. And so we do a 4-part series of your hot topics. And it's awesome because I was just telling you before we pressed record, everybody is so like-minded, but also comes with such different experiences. So your assistant superintendent, right, who coaches and supports assistant superintendents and superintendents across the world. You've got Josh, who supports principals, was an administrator, right, and now supports principals. You've got Mitch, who's executive functioning guru and supports teachers at the middle school level. And then me, social emotional learning, behavior support at your elementary. And so when we come together, it's absolute fire. So yeah, I know you were listening.
Yeah. Okay. So guys, I'm going to put this podcast episode in the show notes that I'm about to talk about. But on the Vibe EDU podcast episode, I think it may have dropped today or yesterday. Right? It was in the last couple of days.
Sunday, yeah.
So you guys are talking about, what is the title of that podcast episode?
It's behavior. It's the behavior series, and I want to say it's episode 2. And I can't think of the title. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, here. Outdated discipline practices that need to end.
Yes, such a good title, and it immediately drew me in. I'm going to tell our listeners kind of what I told you before we started, but I saw the title, didn't listen to it, just saw the title, and I'd been visiting with a friend who is having some experiences with people she's supporting in schools that made me think of her when I saw the title immediately. So I sent it to her without listening to it, and she responded just probably 30 minutes later. She said, yep, just binged that whole podcast episode. And so then I listened to it, and it is so good. It's so real and raw. And the conversation, you can tell it's nothing that's planned. It's just, we're having conversation about this. And here one of the things, and I think this is what's going to lead into this podcast so well. I want to say, so because Josh is coming with principal background, and no. Before that, you start off the podcast episode and you are talking about principals. You're talking about the leaders on the campus before you even get to what's happening in the classroom. Let's talk about the leaders on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
And can you give just a snippet of why that is important in regards to the podcast episode that you guys recorded?
Well, here's the thing. We pressed record for that episode, and I had just gotten back from a trip out to California. And I got home at like 1 a.m. And then only a handful of hours later, like we were recording the podcast. So it was fresh in my brain going, what just happened? And when I walk onto a campus, I can feel the energy like just walking into the building. And I've been in so many schools where you can feel like the heaviness of the walls. In fact, I did write a whole part in the book, Becoming the Bison, all about that, because that sets the tone of everything, like before you even get into a classroom. And if a leader is being pulled in a million directions, or if a leader is now all of a sudden in charge of lunchroom stuff, and also I've got to do IEPs, and then I've got parents, and then I've got to go and do observations, and I've got it can feel so chaotic, and that's the leader. That's your core, that's your foundation. And if that feels crazy, then of course the classrooms and the behaviors feel that way.
Yeah. Fantastic. Again, fantastic episode that I'm going to link in the show notes. So go listen to that. But let's take that idea of the leader's role. Let's talk about the topic of today's podcast, which is having teachers' backs, or having people's backs in general, really, which comes from leadership. And you often say, be intentional so others notice. So if we're bringing clarity to that, we've got to think about what that actually looks like. So if you're looking at school leaders, teachers, what do you want, or how do you decide what you want people to notice first that lets them know, like, I've got your back?
Right. You know what? I mean, we talk about the bison mentality. That's BISON. That's what you're talking about. Be intentional so others notice. And it's about heading into the storm. And that is a storm right then and there. Right. And so as a leader, you do have to look at, what do you want a random person, right? Or a coach coming into your classroom. What do you want them to notice first? Do you want them to notice that it's calm here, that it's safe here, that this is a space where people feel seen and valued and heard and respected here? And it's the stuff that you put on your walls. It's the visual supports that you have around your campus. It's saying hello and good morning to people. It's all of those nuances. And those are intentional things that you can do so that people notice all of that. So it's really interesting. We were with a school up there where a principal, I mean, man, she has got her teachers' backs. You can feel that the second you walk in. It's like, hey, I'm the leader. And she literally grabbed me and held me. I was like, oh, this is an awesome campus. I didn't even walk through. And as I'm walking through, Casey, it just got better and better and better, more intentional. The wellness center ran with by the counselor, and outdoor seating so that full on classrooms can come outside. I mean, everything was just beautiful, but the way that she spoke and her tone with her staff, it was, we're in this together. You really truly felt that. And so I think that is something that a lot of leaders need to practice. It's not natural. It just they're so stuck in themselves that it's hard for us to kind of step out of that,
Right. And it's not something, I talk about this all the time, and it is a pet peeve. If I have a future TED Talk, this is kind of what it's going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
But we have this assumption, and listeners are going to be like, oh my gosh, Casey has said this so many times, stop saying it. But I'm not going to stop saying it because we need to hear it. We have the assumption that because people are in a leadership position, or because we are adults, we inherently have the skills to be able to lead effectively, or we have somehow magically developed the skills to collaborate well or to create this really powerful collaborative environment. It is not the case. And if you think about any leader who has gone through training, what they're going through, if they are going through like just the university route, right, to get their certification, they have very specific classes they have to take. Well, if you look at those classes and you analyze them, you're not going to see the attributes of a leader that actually need to be effective or implemented when they're actually in the position. And one of the things that you're talking about is just that skill. I want to know if you have a like a phrase that you use for this skill. I think about it as like social emotional skills, but like thinking about your self-awareness, your social awareness. Do you have emotional clarity? And we don't develop those things in people before they get into these positions. And we don't develop those things as they are in the position, which is even more important. We kind of throw these people into the position. They've had the training. You go into the position and pooh, I'm just going to let you free and
Yep.
see how this goes for you.
Yep.
But why does it stop after our training that really isn't that effective?
Mhm.
Um, tell your thoughts on that. I just kind of exploded a little bit, and I
No,
think yeah. Oh,
I
here's my question. Here's my
go ahead.
question as you think about that.
Yeah.
How does someone take a first step in thinking about their intentionality? Like, how do they step back and reflect on that? Like, how do you even go about honing that craft or that skill?
I love that. Okay, so first thing came to mind was my phrase is teach social and emotional skills, don't expect them. And so that's something that I say over and over and over when it comes to kids, but also when it comes to adults. And so the work that I do is supporting adults in dealing with you first. And again, what's the title of my book? Becoming the Bison. And it's guess what? It's all about you as the adult. We're not even getting to like how to teach the children any of this. You have to start with you first. And I love that you just asked that question because we had a Zoom on Saturday with my community, with teachers across the whole entire country. And we're bringing in more to create a new cohort of our community. So the doors just closed there. But the very first thing that I asked that whole group on Zoom on Saturday was, what do you value? What do you value? And I was like, but think of yourself in like these different roles too. Yes, as a leader or as a mother, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter, like whatever, like all of your roles that you play. What do you value? And I said, hop into the chat, let's go. And the amount of times that I read like honesty or trust, connection, collaboration, community. And I'm like, well, you guys have been around me too long, is honestly what I was thinking first. But at the same time, like, okay, well, now that you know that, that's your first step. And how do you
Mm,
step into that? How do you show people that you do value those things? Because if that's you at your core, well, then you got to step into it. And it's those step-by-step actions. It's the reflecting and looking back. That reflection piece is huge. And we talk about, talking to kids, and if something like you pop off as an educator, right, like somebody kind of like got under your skin, you got upset at your class or your group of kids or a kid, well, we teach you to apologize and step up and say, hey, that I messed up, I'm really sorry, that wasn't right, that whole kind of behavior conversation. We were talking about that on the Vibe EDU podcast for sure.
mhm.
But like as an adult, you need to do that too to other
Yeah,
adults. And there's
yeah.
so many times where I have teachers who come to me and say, Kim, I don't have the best relationship with my administrator. I feel like it's like this top down thing, right? Like the eyes are, and I must like behave and fall in line. And the voices, they're all talking like the walls feel heavy, all of that. And it's so interesting. Like you said, like, well, you can't just like throw an administrator into this role and like expect them to just be able to do all of this. They still need coaching, but so do
Mhm.
teachers. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
We all do. And parents, like
yeah.
you need to find your people, you need to find your herd, is what I always say.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do something very similar with instructional leaders, be it principals. Usually I'm working with instructional leadership teams. Like that is my forte. I believe that
Right.
leadership is a team sport. And so we talk about how do we gain role clarity, um, emotional clarity, and social clarity. So the two pieces that I see we don't have a good grasp on it are the role clarity. Like I know what my position title is, but I'm not really considering what my role is with that position. And I'm not considering how my values fit into that.
Mm.
And it's amazing to me how many people come to these positions without having thought about what are my values. I want to mention that a little bit. Like I kind of want to take, we're not even going by the questions that we developed, by the way, everybody. It's the best conversations. You talked earlier about how heavy a campus can feel when you walk in, and you kind of gave a comparison with the one leader that you walked in. She immediately embraced you, and from there on, it was just a series of events letting you see how positive the campus is and how intentional the campus was.
Mhm.
I want to talk about that for a little bit because when we're thinking about that intentionality piece, so tell me the phrase bison again. Be intentional,
So others
so
notice.
others notice. Be intentional, so others notice.
Mhm.
When we're looking at a campus that feels heavy, um, what do you feel like the impact is not only on the teachers but the leader? And
Mm.
why does that kind of campus exist?
Mm. Well, I can think back to a campus, and I know I wrote about this in my book for sure because it stuck with me and it has stuck with me for years. Where you walk in, and I mean, I literally was like, hello, anybody? Right? Like, anybody here? Like, that was how it felt at first. And then you could instantly tell because I work with the teachers, right? The teachers will come to me, and that's like my primary group, right? But if you don't have a leader who takes the time to be in the room with their teachers, learning alongside them, growing, adding to the conversations, like that is the difference. And I will never ever forget, like afterwards, kind of realizing because I was there for a few days. Day one, I kind of went, oof, okay, that's what's happening. Day two was, ooh, we talk about getting to your core as an educator. So you need to be curious, open, and ready to expand. That's your CORE. At your core, that's you. That's how you function. That's how you live. You need a strong core. And those teachers, I definitely realized were not curious, were not open, and they definitely were not ready to expand. And at the last session with every single educator, across the staff. I mean, to still have teachers like this and have that be okay, or have a principal on their phone sending emails, right? Like all of that is just like, I'm closed minded, I can't do this. And then you think like the impact on kids. Like
Hmm.
if you aren't curious and open and ready to expand with kids, also it's just, I mean, it's easy to see when you really, really see it and step back. And I mean, that's why it's called teaching inside out. We look from the outside in, so you could teach from the inside out, right? But the opposite of all of that is so life changing for you as a human, right? Not even just on the campus, but as a parent at home, as a friend, just all your roles again, like you become different. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that was the
Yeah,
difference.
absolutely. I often think about, like, obviously, this show is all about clarity, right? And so we talk about the small things that require clarity and that make the biggest difference. And I think what we're hitting on again and again are values.
Mm,
So, yes, you as a leader need to consider your core values. You as a teacher need to consider your core values. Only then can you then look at your entire campus, your whole organization, and together say, what are our values here collectively? What do we believe about students and what do we believe about learning?
Yeah.
And I find, I don't know if you see this as well, but I find so often when I'm going onto campuses, like if I'm doing a campus analysis visit, one of the things that I do is I walk the halls and I just pop by different classrooms and I visit with people in the hallways and say, hey, tell me about what your campus area focus is. Like, what are you guys really focusing on? And what are the goals for your campus?
Mm.
That's one of the questions I ask. And then another question is, tell me about some of the things that your campus has decided you believe about students or student learning. And a couple of things happen. Either I met with crickets, like they don't really know what I'm talking about and they have to probe further. So they say, well, I don't really understand what you're asking. Are you asking this or that? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
how much more clear can I be? Or they all have different answers.
Mm.
And that is a sure sign that there's a lack of clarity, but specifically a lack of clarity around values.
Right.
But that is one thing that I believe is going to make the difference in how every person, including the people who sit at the front desk, how every person shows up for their job and how they represent themselves when other people like from the community come inside. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, such a good conversation. We could talk about these things forever. I want to talk a little bit about I feel like we've talked about so many of these things we wanted to talk about so much, but I want to lean more into this bison metaphor.
Mhm.
And you talk about people finding their herd.
Mhm.
Uh, what does it look like to take the ego out of the work and lean on others for support? Because that's another thing that's really interesting about education is how the ego pops out and prevents us from leaning into core values that we don't often have.
You just you hit a nerve, sister. You hit a nerve. So the amount of times that I have so I have another podcast called Unleashing the Bison. And it's with me, it's with my team, it is with my other company, Celebrate Good Times, and all of that. And the stuff that we talk about is that stuff. That's the stuff. Because we run into that storm over and over and over again. Like I can feel
Mhm.
myself. I'm leaning into the screen too. I can just feel it.
Yeah.
The amount of times even educators, their ego just takes I don't know, it's like that you carry it front forward, right? Like forward facing that ego. It is, oh, I have this new position and then now I am like an assistant principal. No, you're not. You're a teacher on special assignment. You're still a teacher. Like that kills me. I see that often. It's also, I'm a principal and it's my way or the highway, and you're going this way and going this direction, and you're doing this and you're changing grade levels, right? Or it's maybe it is a teacher on special assignment, an instructional coach or something who's like, I am the district. And it's those things that get in the way of the work
Mhm.
over and over and over again. And so the amount of times that we've had conversations with leaders where I'm like, okay, this is the plan moving forward. You already have a group of 30 teachers across your entire school district who are they're all in, they're bought in, all in, want coaching. Who really, really is all in like that? How lucky are you to have that?
Yeah.
And for people to say, well, we've just never done it like that. So we're doing it this way, right? It is it kills me because I can see how beautiful it really could be and the expansion across an entire district, Casey, not even just a school,
Yeah.
but a district. And to have the ego get in the way every
Mhm.
single time because of title or unknown or whatever it is, it's a killer. That is a killer for sure. For culture, that's a culture killer. I do believe that.
Mm-hmm. I feel like we could have an entire podcast episode about ego.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm thinking about, well, I have a couple of questions. Really, one's just a story, but I want you to be thinking about this question, then we're going to go to it here in a second. But do you find that, because this is kind of my story, my narrative, but did you find that one of the reasons you shifted out of what you were doing and into the business was because you could see what could be and what should be, but you just weren't able to make it happen because of egos where you were, and then you wanted to take it to a broader scale, like, if I can't do the work here, I'm going to do the work in all of these other places where we can get past ego, or where I can coach people to get past ego. So just be thinking about that. I could see on your face that maybe you have some thoughts on it. But it's interesting because last week I was working with 4 different campuses and in Alabama. And, we're going through the clarity cycle framework. And one of the things that the leaders really wanted to implement on their campus was learning walks where the teachers are learning from each other. And they said, why we want our teachers to be willing to share about the great things that they're doing and how they're doing it. And we want other people to be willing to learn from those people. But and I didn't think about this term in the moment, but ego is what it is. They said there's just so much competition. And as soon as someone is highlighted, other people have this perspective of them like, oh, they're doing things so well. And of course, they're not pointing me out, so I must be doing things horribly. I think that's definitely where ego's getting in the way. So talk about those two things a little bit. I think they go hand in hand.
Totally. So we have a phrase that we use with the community, and it's connection plus collaboration minus competition equals community. And so if you are a leader and you are valuing, right, community and connection and collaboration, well, you've got to take out that competition part. And I love that you said that. I completely see that. I think a lot of times we bring, especially, it's out of the norm. Like I coach teachers and we pull them out of their classroom in a small cohort and we talk through things, and then we go into classrooms and we try things, and then we do that again and again, and then we pull them out again and we debrief, and then off they go. And guess what? We come back and we do it again. We do it over and over and over for years. And that's hard for somebody that has competition, that has ego get in the way, right? They try to control it or manipulate it because it's uncomfortable. And so now I feel like I realize they're just uncomfortable. And I totally get that. And I can empathize instead of like banging my head up against the wall. You're the first thing that you asked. So I was working for a school district, and I was just posting things on Instagram. I mean, I was just a teacher when Instagram like literally first became a thing. And I was like, well, this is what I'm doing. And I'm seeing amazing changes in me and my students. And then it turned into teachers all across my district literally coming in, flocking after school, talking to me in my classroom. And then their coaches would come in and TOSAs would come in. And I was like, this is amazing. How cool is this? And I had a teacher recently who was like, I'll never forget coming into your classroom. We started holding like sessions throughout the school year before I even like stepped out of the classroom. I worked all day long. You can think about this with children, and then hosted these sessions where anybody could come in across 18 elementary schools is where it started. Right. And this one teacher was like, I'll never forget. I literally like flew in and like sat on your carpet, like a first grade classroom, and sat on the carpet, right, to listen to you, to like give me something. So that's how it all started. And then it just got to be a point where I was like, okay, you need to go to the district office. And I remember thinking, Casey, like I've made it, right? Like this is where I belong. Like my name is on that plate up there, and how I got this cubicle. And on day one, I was like, oh God, this is not it.
Yeah.
No, this is not it. This is not it. And I remember I was like, okay, 18 elementary schools, 7 middle schools, 4 high schools, party of one. And at the time it was behavior support, which I quickly morphed and changed my title because it wasn't putting out fires and behaviors. It was your tier 1 social emotional learning in a systematic way to create common language and common systems across the whole district. And so seeing a lot, right? Being exposed to a lot, going into a lot of classrooms and coaching. And again, we worked out, I mean, such beautiful systems to support educators. And then COVID hit. And that was the wrench in things. But with that, I was like, well, I love this. And I'm pretty sure I can do all of this like better and better and better with districts everywhere. Yeah. And that conversation I had with my former superintendent, and he literally looked at me and was like, take your show on the road then. And I was like, oh, shoot. And then we moved to Texas. And it was that year that we moved out here. And I was just thinking to myself, yeah, okay, let's go, game on. And it has exploded over the past a little over 5 years. However, you'll love this. I did get a text message from a district leader recently, the last few months. And I definitely did a podcast episode about this, solo one, where it was a screenshot of a post that I had made about how teachers feel burnt out and how there's a lot of behaviors and how we need to do something different to support them. And I received a text message with a screenshot of this from a district leader that I had worked with who said, she's really getting on my nerves. And it was sent accidentally to me and another district employee. And I looked at it, Casey, and I was like, I couldn't even cry. I couldn't even, but because honestly, what did I think? It's the ego. It's the ego that has gotten in the way. And when you hold up a mirror to someone and say, this is what you're doing, and it's not having the impact that you think it's having or that you want it to have on kids and teachers, right? Yeah. It is the ego that gets in the way. And so when I saw your face when I just told that story. Yeah. And my response was, I'm really hurt. I have a feeling I wasn't supposed to see this. And the response that I received 5 days later was paragraph of saying, well, this and this and this and this. And I was like, well, that's your ego. That is your ego. And that's the mirror.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That is crazy.
You can't make this up. You can't make this up.
You can't. But you know what? I hate that. I hate that happened. But also I love that it happened. So you can now share about that. And it's a perfect example, right? Like all of these things happen. They're perfect examples. And while they suck in the moment, they're a benefit for us and for other people, I think, Wow. Yeah. Fantastic, man. I think I'm going to take that term ego into my clarity cycle training because it's so important. And I think a huge part of that is, like you said, just holding up a mirror. We've got to have that self-reflection.
Yes.
And self-awareness. Okay, man, we're going to come to a close because, I told you before we got started, my goal is 35 minutes.
I know.
Okay. whatever, Casey. So I want you to tell our audience one thing that you hope they take away from today's conversation.
My one takeaway is always the same. It's you're not meant to do any of this alone, and you need to find your people. You need to find your herd. And whether you are in a leadership position, you are a teacher, you're a parent, you all need to find your people. And so that can look like listening to a podcast, right? And knowing that you're not alone. It could be maybe reaching out to somebody, sliding into somebody's DMs or their LinkedIn like we did, right? To find your people and make those connections. It could be going to some live event, joining a community. You just are not meant to do it alone. And I feel like so often we feel like when we're put into these positions, like we're just supposed to suffer in silence and close our door and be a silo. And that's just, it wasn't built that way. It just wasn't built that way, like to serve you. So I need you guys to, again, I think, focus on your values and take action to really find your people.
Yeah. And I want to add, just to loop back to our podcast title or this episode title, you cannot have people's backs if you don't have people that have your back. So finding your herd is how you do that. Okay. Where can people connect with you outside of this show?
Okay. So Teaching Inside Out on Instagram, there's underscores in between those. SELebrate Good Times on Instagram with an SEL, SELebrate. I am active for sure there. LinkedIn, Kim Gameroz. And of course, both my websites, celebrategoodtimes.com, teachinginsideout.com. I just would love your listeners to know that you can feel supported. It can feel different from everybody. And honestly, behaviors in the classroom, you can go from chaos to calm, but you need somebody from the outside looking in.
100%. It makes all the difference in the world. Kim, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for this open and honest conversation. And until next time, guys, we will catch you later. Bye, everybody. Hey, listener, I am so honored that you listened to today's episode, and I hope you gained something valuable from it. I'd also be honored if you did me 3 solid favors. First, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Second, be sure you're following me on social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on LinkedIn or Instagram. And finally, if you are looking to book a dynamic and relatable speaker for your next event, conference, or retreat, I would love to bring a message about how the craft of clarity makes a significant impact on both leadership and life. Until next time, always remember, clarity precedes capacity.